Doug Speight with Cathedral Leasing. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you. So, good afternoon. My name is Doug Speight. I am the founder and CEO of Cathedral Leasing. I did not lose the fact that Philippe put me last on a day where he served burritos. That's called shade because half of you were asleep. So I want to wake you guys up very quickly to talk about the equipment leasing industry, which is so exciting that you just can't stand yourselves, right? First, let's talk about one of my clients. This is Elena. Elena is a salesperson for a large equipment distributor, right? She sells semi-trucks. Each of these trucks is worth about $200,000 a piece. And she sees about 2,400 deals every single year. Out of those 2,400 deals, some of them factor out, but she sees about 152 companies and individuals that are legitimate buyers of this type of equipment. Immediately out of that 152 companies, she loses a third of those companies because she can't find financing for those companies quickly enough. Now, do the math. She sees a ton of these trucks. There are 450,000 of these trucks sold every year in the United States. At $200,000 a truck, that's $90 billion just in trucks. So Elena's problem is that she sees a ton of volume. She sees 2,400 viable companies every year, but she loses a third of them because she can't find the right banks and leasing firms to connect them with. At the same time, her salary is based on commission, largely based on commission, right? So if she can't get a deal closed, what happens to it? She immediately has to drop that deal after a 10-day window and move on to a deal that she knows she can close so that she can get the right bonus at the end of the month. Big problem in a big industry. Now this is Mark. On the other end of the spectrum, Mark's with a bank, a community bank or regional bank that is about $15 billion in assets. So Mark is a career banker. He's not a salesman. He doesn't know trucks all that great, but he knows financing. Now Mark's problem is that he doesn't see enough volume because he has no salespeople on staff. He has to rely on the commercial banker to bring him deals so that they can get lease deals done. And at the same time, he has incentive compensation that is tied to each deal that he closes at the end of the month. So you see the mismatch there? So between the two of them, they need to be able to harvest their lost deals, those 52 odd companies that get lost in the shuffle at $200,000 a pop. They also need to streamline the application process because it's extremely complex to apply. If any of you have applied for a bank loan, raise your hand. Okay, well, half of you haven't. So the problem is it's extremely complex, it's extremely time consuming, and it's not repeatable. You have to go through the same process with every individual bank if you want to compare rates and terms. So they need a process that helps them streamline that. And they need to both achieve some volume in the space. Now, who cares about equipment leasing and all of this jazz? Well, there are 13,000 Elenas in the country, and there are nearly 7,000 Marks. And between the two of them, they need to be able to make this connection. The global industry for equipment leasing is $1.4 trillion. 1.4 trillion. And that is our bogey. So we target about $324 billion of that industry with our product. So what are we? Cathedral Leasing is essentially the lending tree for the equipment leasing industry for large ticket items like semi-trucks, trains, planes, automobiles, construction equipment, agricultural equipment, medical equipment for hospitals and practices. We facilitate the exchange of this information between salespeople at the equipment distributors like Elena and the bankers like Mark. So picture us as the lending tree for equipment leasing. So quite simply, we just streamline the process. We take a process that's extremely complex, extremely time consuming, can take up to 90 days just to get an approval. It's leaves you uninformed. You don't know where you are in the process until a banker calls you and tells you that you're either approved or denied. And you can only issue one application at a time. We take that process and make it simple, intuitive, we make it quick. You get a response within 4 days. It's an informed process. You get to see graphically exactly where you are in the approval process. And with one application, you can get up to 12 different banks and leasing firms so that you can compare the right terms and conditions to make sure that you're getting the right deal. So quite simply, this is what we do. This is all we do internally, is we're able to take a multitude of applications, score them quickly with a proprietary methodology. We're able to analyze those applications and layer on all sorts of data about that particular company that banks don't often see. So we're able to tell what that company is doing on social media. Is their following growing? Are they popular or not? What's happening with their hiring practices? Are they growing and expanding and hiring new people? What's happening with the financings? Did they get a recent financing in that company that creates more prospects? We're able to layer on all of that data and then match those applicants to the right banks and leasing firms. And as a result, the customers get multiple offers that they can choose from and get the best deal. So my team, just very quickly, has worked in a number of organizations. I have a number of startups. This is my 5th startup with Cathedral Leasing. I've worked with NASA, with the Department of Energy, with several universities. Camelia Dionati built the Lending Tree platform that allows them to take mortgages, applications for mortgages, and expose those to banks and firms. So she is our CTO. Jonathan Patrick is a commercial banker, so he has been Mark most of his career. He's SBA's Lender of the Year for the past 3 years, so he really knows what he's doing. And we also have Courtney Watson, who is on the direct marketing sales team, formerly with AOL. And we'll be adding a number of different slots here. As you can see at the bottom, we're going to be bringing on technical talent. We'll also bring in direct sales and digital marketing. So how do we make money? Really, it's 3 ways. Number 1, we charge a small subscription fee to the Elenas of the world. Number 2, we have a success fee, which accounts for the majority of our revenue. Every deal that's done, we get a 3% commission on each deal. So it's a success fee on $200,000 pieces of equipment and more. And we monetize the data. We're capturing a lot of information about each company, about each bank, about each asset, whether that's a truck, plane, train, or automobile, that we monetize through both the manufacturers and the rest of the technical community. So what's up for us next? What does the future look like? Well, we are very interested in blockchain technology. If you've never heard of blockchain, it's essentially the platform that underlays Bitcoin and a number of different digital currencies. But the platform allows you to tag on information to any transaction, verify that transaction so it cannot be disputed, and then follow that asset throughout its useful life. So what does that mean for us? For trucks, we can tag on service and maintenance records. We can tag on residual values. We can tag on configurations, how many accessories were added to that particular asset, so that the next buyer knows exactly what they're getting. And the next buyer after that, and the next buyer after that. So where are we now? Number 1, we validated our scoring methodology with 5 banks from around the country that have run through 200 plus loan applications for over $40 million in loans. So this is the most difficult part of dealing with banks, is getting them to sign off on your scoring methodology, how you evaluate companies. Second, we've partnered with over 40 banks. We'll add another 60 by the end of the 3rd quarter. We also have seen nearly $11 million in deals just in the last 7 months, even without a working platform, just with our MVP live. And last, we've recently joined Village Capital's FinTech program. So we are working with Village Capital, PayPal Ventures, Excel Ventures, and a number of different venture firms through that program. So with that being said, my name is Doug Speight. I represent Cathedral Leasing. All we do is simplify and streamline the equipment lease application process and make the right marriages so that companies get a choice in the types of finance deals that they see otherwise. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Come on. Yes?
Who pays the success fee? The owners or the somehow?
Good question. So the question was, who pays the success fee at the end that makes up the bulk of our revenue? The banks actually pay us the fee. They actually price it into the deal.
Right.
Good question. Yes?
What's the most expensive piece of equipment that you guys can use?
Very good question. So the question was, what's the most expensive piece of equipment that we can do? We have manufacturing and production equipment that totals up to 3 million per unit. And that's about the max. We top out at about $1.5 million. We tend to focus at the level of the trucks, the $200,000 to $250,000 range, because banks can approve that on site without having to go up the chain, and that makes the process really quick and efficient. Yes?
Two things. Who are your competitors, and don't a lot of these companies have vendor leasing? Or
Very good question. So the first is who are our competitors? We have 4 major competitors in the online marketplace space. One's a company named called LeaseQ, the other's eLease, Balboa Capital. These are firms that have been around for an average of about 8 years, but they have limited connectivity when it comes to banks. So they have exclusive deals that limit them to about 4 to 5 banks that they can connect to deals. Our model is completely different. We want as many banks as humanly possible out of the 3,600 around the country so that we get the best deals. The second question was
vendor leasing.
Vendor leasing. So many of these manufacturers offer what's called captive leasing programs. So if you go to Caterpillar for a piece of equipment, Caterpillar has a financial arm that offers a lease. The problem is they only take A++ and A+ credit, which leaves A, B++, B, C, so on and so forth. The vendor leasing programs only take the top 18% cream off the top, which leaves a great deal of area for us to cover in the rest of the 82%. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you do leasing for individual people?
I'm sorry?
Do you do leasing for individual people?
Not for individual people. We're strictly B2B, so we focus mainly on small to medium-sized enterprises, less than 200 employees, generally less than 100 million in revenue. Yes?
What are your biggest regulatory burdens?
Regulatory burdens. Good question. The beauty of this model is that we take no exposure on our books, right? We don't own any assets. No assets come across our books, so we have very little regulatory exposure. We serve as an automated broker for a large degree. Now, once we get into the blockchain elements where we're actually facilitating transactions in the secondary market to secondary buyers and the like, we'll have a slight regulatory hurdle in terms of being an offerer of that equipment. But for this phase 1, we have very few regulatory burdens. Any other questions? Good questions. Thanks.